USCHO.com.
Welcome to USCHO Edge for Friday, January 20th, 2023, where each week we handicap and prognosticate about some top games this weekend. This podcast is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 6th and 8th at Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida. Secure your seats at ncaa.com/mfrozen4. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly and Dan Rubin. Well, back at the beginning of the season, we kind of guessed that some of the odds would start to narrow down as the season went on, and maybe some of the over-unders would get more refined. Perhaps that's going on this week, at least to my semi-intelligent eyes in the world of betting. But let's just jump right in here. Right at the top of our roster is two games from Hockey East. UConn is plus 105 at UMass, which is minus 135. Over-under is 5.5 on this one. What's this one look like? Let's start with Jim.
I personally think that UConn might be undervalued here a little bit. I know that both of these teams have had some tough sledding. Talking with Greg Carvel, I have not talked with Mike Cavanaugh yet about this game. I'm broadcasting this game on NESN Plus on Friday night. But I have not talked to Mike Cavanaugh yet, so I'll coach it that way. But Greg Carvel, they've got some things they've got to work out. And I think right now they're not getting the leadership. They're certainly not getting the scoring from their senior class. That concerns me. Home ice could play a role in this one, and that's, I think, why UMass gets the minus 135. But I think that's a little generous. I think that I would have had both of these teams as minuses, maybe like a minus 125 and minus 105. Is favoring UMass on that one. But I don't think you can undersell UConn. That's a darn good UConn team. And they've had a few bumps in the road lately. Didn't get a win in their big opener at the new building last Saturday. That probably hurts a little bit. But that almost makes me think that they're going to come out a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more hungry. Over under, I love the number. 5.5 is perfect because I think I see this as a 4-2 game. I see this as a 3-2 game maybe. So I wouldn't touch the over under. But on this one, I like UConn. What about you, Dan?
I actually went the other way. I took UMass, and as the proprietor of the ice bus, I've been driving that thing since the beginning of the year. That I really liked UConn. I pulled it off the exit ramp a bit when I looked over this one because I looked back and there was just a bunch of stuff about UConn that jumped off the page that to me was at the beginning of the year. Maybe they're a team that peaked early and just looked really good at the beginning of the year. They said that ever since that split with Lowell. They've had a few bumps. They lost that game to Cornell at Madison Square Garden. They got blown out by Merrimack. They lost to BU. They swept LIU, but one of those games had to go to overtime, and that's kind of a hiccup to me. The losses to Northeastern. So if I'm looking over some of the stuff about UConn, it just kind of jumped off the page and said, look, I really like UConn. I think maybe they just kind of peaked a little bit earlier than I would have liked them to. And that's in contrast to UMass, which you're right, Jim. They have some problems there. I mean, that loss to UNH and the loss to BU were not good losses, either one of them. And they're on the downswing. But I just think UMass, when challenged, has a bit more of that resume to say, look, they absolutely need a win. In this week, they need to win both these games this weekend, or at least need to win at home. And being at home for me is kind of the mitigating factor. I think UConn probably wins on Saturday, but since it's in Western Mass, in that mythical land west of the 128 Pike interchange out here in Eastern Mass, out in that place where dragons live in Western Mass, I'm going to go with UMass here. I will say this: I hate the over under. I hate it as an under, like 5.5. I'd hammer the over on that. That's not even a question in my mind. They're going to hit the over.
I don't know if I agree with you there, because I think both teams have shown pretty good goaltending. I don't think they're going to hammer 6 or 7. There's going to be a game a couple from now that we're going to talk about an over under a 6.5 that I would have put at 20.5 at this point because of the teams playing. But no, I don't see this being one of those games where you have to hammer the over. I think that both goaltenders here are pretty good, but I still don't like the number. I still think this could be easily a 3-2, 4-2 game. Too close for my comfort.
Both teams come into this weekend limping a bit. UConn losing 2 in a row, UMass losing 3 in a row. If one of them gets swept, they're putting themselves in a pretty lousy position. And Dan, you mentioned about UConn peaking too early. I kind of feel like UMass peaked in mid-October with those 2 wins over Denver and really kind of has drifted since then. But I'm concerned about what Jim said about leadership and senior leadership. Team chemistry, team leadership can make or break a team. And that would be something that would really, really concern me. In our picks that come out on Friday, I picked UConn in this one.
And I probably will too. And I think it goes back, and Greg Carvel, when I talked to him on Tuesday, was very candid in saying that their seniors have to do more, and they haven't done it right now. He's getting a lot of goal scoring out of his freshman and sophomore classes right now. That's not the formula for a national championship team.
Well, let's move on to the next one. Northeastern is plus 100 and Merrimack, which is a minus 130. The over-under in this one is 5.5.
I'm kind of surprised that Northeastern is the underdog here. And I understand that Merrimack still, is the top team in Hockey East according to the standings. But when we look at the teams in the Hockey East right now, Northeastern's right on their heels. They've done a good job of catching up after they had some iffy moments in their season. But Merrimack has really struggled coming out of break. And that's concerning to me. I know that they got a win last Saturday against Providence, but before that, let's just go through the games since they came out of break. They needed overtime at the Ledger Bank Classic against Dartmouth, which I think was 58th, maybe 57th, maybe even 59th in the pairwise at the time. They then get smoked in the consolation game. I'm sorry, in the championship game of the Ledger Bank by Providence. They need a tie against Yale, which again I think was bottom 3, bottom 4, bottom 5 in the pairwise at the time. They lose to Brown 6-2. They lose to Providence 8-3, and then they do bounce back with a 3-0 win over Providence. They've got some issues right now. I don't know exactly everything that's going on with that team. Northeastern, they seem to be getting healthier. And a healthy Northeastern team, and I know they will not get back to full health. I know that they're missing some guys long term, but the healthier this Northeastern team gets, the more scary they are. Because when I saw them back in October, I sat there and said, wow, this is a deep team. And now that they've won 3 of their last 5 games, including that sweep over UConn, 1 game at Fenway, 1 game down in Connecticut, I'm impressed with the way that right now that Northeastern is playing.
Yeah, I don't understand the odds on this. I mean, I do, but I don't. Like, it's one of those I do because I kind of figuring how the odds makers work. I just don't, because we know what we've seen out of both of these teams. And, when it comes to Northeastern, besides the health factor there, the 2 wins over UConn, conversely, as I mentioned about the what happened to UConn, was those 2 wins came under some really interesting situations when you step outside at Fenway and then that opening game down in Stores. It was those were 2 real bounce back moments for Northeastern after the loss to Bentley. Even the Harvard game, I know they lost 8-4, and for the record, that's the first time I've ever pronounced Harvard correctly in my entire life. I'll go back and correct it later to call it Harvard. But that game, that was a 6-4 game outside of the first period. I thought Northeastern got stronger as that game went on. And so for me, they're starting to find their groove after that lull of December really zapped them. And I think part of that was health related. So as they're starting to smack that groove and as they're starting to hit the gas pedal, they're catching a Merrimack team that is starting to become more of a movable object than we all really were hoping for out of them after the way the first half of the year went. So when you combine those 2 factors, this is a no-brainer to me to go with an underdog Northeastern team, even on the road. When you factor in quote home ice, Merrimack to me has never been one of those places that like you think about, and this is no disrespect meant to Merrimack whatsoever, but like when you think of the home ice advantage, you think of the Minnesotas, the North Dakotas, those big teams have gone into Merrimack with success over the last few years. So,
oh, come on. No, it's the most miserable place to play.
I think
I think making that building miserable is part of their home ice advantage.
I'm going the other way. I'm using absolutely no logic, but I really do think that the home ice doesn't really It just doesn't.
We have to get our intern on what Merrimack's home ice record has been for the last 3 years, because it's not bad. I think it's actually better than you think it is.
I mean, weird COVID year, nobody was good. Nobody had a good time. Last year, I know they were pretty good, but I know before that, even before weird COVID year, they weren't particularly good home or on the road. So I think that's probably what I'm basing it on.
All right, start talking. I'm going to get that. The intern inside me is going to figure this one out.
Wow, you're internal.
I'm telling you, pre-COVID.
We don't have the budget for the real
pre-COVID.
So.
Work with me here. Pre-COVID. As for over under, I just don't like. I don't like the number. This could easily hit.
No, I know not.
No, this could hit the over. This could hit the under. This could hit. This could. I just don't like it. I mean, 5.5. You're looking at a 3-2 and an empty netter, and everyone's angry.
You know, the funny thing is, neither of you has mentioned so far last year's Richter Award winner, Devin Levi. He's kind of faded from the headlines, but he has a .920 save percentage. The goals against at 2.55, you might say, well, that's not so great. I mean, it's okay. It's not great, but he's seeing 32 shots on goal a game, and a healthier Northeastern should be able to reduce the number of shots he's seeing.
Yeah, and that was what I was going to say, Ed, was that part of this is also the defense playing in front of him. I mean, that's he's still who he is, but I mean, I had the front row seat to Northeastern's loss at Bentley, and there were problems with defending in front of him, where the goals came in or there were susceptible areas. If they get healthier, if they get a little bit better, they play with a little more cohesion, he's not going to face those 32 shots. And if he faces 20 to 25, whatever it is, they cut it down by a factor of 10, then you're taking at least 1 or 2 goals off the board with him.
So the intern has done the research. Merrimack is 18, 10, and 2 over the last 2 seasons at home. I did not put the COVID season in there. If you want to put the season before the COVID season in there, the one that got interrupted, they were 4-11 and 2 at home that year, but they were 7-14 and 3 overall. They were not a good team. So let's just take the good Merrimack teams. They have been very good at home this season and lost.
You know what? I'm still stuck in 2018 listening to Drake and whatever else was big in 2018.
That's not surprising by you, though.
Big Drake household in the Rubin household.
We've got a look at the Big Ten and the NCHC coming up. USCHO Edge is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 6th and 8th at Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida. Get your tickets at ncaa.com/mfrozen4.
All right, class, it's the NCAA Men's Frozen Four. Welcome to Fandom 101. Want to help your team rule the rink? Here's your assignment. Lesson 1, go big for every goal. 2, when you bring it, bring enough for the whole class. And 3, attendance is encouraged, but passion is mandatory. The NCAA Men's Frozen Four, April 6th and 8th at Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida. Buy your tickets today at ncaa.com/mfrozen4. Class dismissed.
Welcome back to USCHO Edge. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly and Dan Rubin. In the Big Ten, a huge matchup this weekend. Michigan heads to Minnesota. The Wolverines are a +130. The Golden Gophers a -160. Healthy, hefty over-under at 6.5.
I would have made this one 9, honestly. I think there's going to be a lot of goals scored in this. I mean, you have the potential. You have 2 of the best offenses in the country. I know that both teams can play defense if they want. I'm not sure that they always do. And I think that once the influence of this game will be the track meet, in my opinion. I think this will be a fast game up and down the ice. I like Minnesota at home here. But I would hammer this over. I got to think that this is going to be 8 goals minimum per game in this series.
Can I choose violence? I think Minnesota comes out of this weekend with more wins than the Vikings have had in the playoffs over the last 3 years, which means all they have to do is win 1.
Well, that's not hard.
No, that's not hard. I threw that in there just for Gophers fans who are listening, who just absolutely whipped their Spotify right off the phone. Like, they are not happy with me for pointing that out. But you know what? The Vikings lost again. Anyways, I am with you. I mean, this over-under, I think it's going to be a track meet. I think it's going to be great. I think it's just going to be a fun series. I don't love Michigan plus 130. Like I feel like I feel like that maybe should have drifted closer to a little bit more even odds with Minnesota at minus 160. But then I remember how much I really do like the Gophers, especially in the league, especially at home in the league, especially remembering that back in, when was it that they played? November. They bludgeoned the Michigan back line for 11, 12 goals, whatever it was. And so I really like Minnesota, and I really like the over, which means that there's going to be like a 2-1 game in here.
The great thing is if you have the access to the national sports package, so Bally's Sports, you'll get both games. Saturday's game on BTN, but Friday on the Bally's family of networks. I love the fact that you can watch both of these games. I want to see these games. I don't have Bally's, but I will find a way to hack it and get some of the action when I'm sitting in my hotel room in Amherst, Mass on Friday night.
Well, it should be interesting. I got to go with you, Jimmy, on the over at 6.5, not just because of these two teams, but the trend this season is high scoring games. You know, you get a small one in there, a 1-0, 2-1 game, but it seems to me, just anecdotally, we've had a lot of high scoring games this season. And Minnesota took it to Michigan. Let's keep that in mind too, at Yost Ice Arena earlier in the season. But that was when both teams were sick, but Michigan especially was feeling a lot of illness, and the Wolverines also going to be looking to get a little revenge here too.
Yeah, that might factor in the fact that you want to get that kick back in. You got hosted down bad. The host at Yost, it did not go well. So I think that you're looking at a situation where Michigan probably feels like they have to pump their chest a little bit in this series.
Let's go to the NCHC, a couple of matchups on our roster. Denver is minus 105 at St. Cloud State, which is minus 125. So a pretty close matchup there with an over-under of 6.
Is Denver's offense itself going to score 8 goals a game again, or whatever it was 7 each game last weekend did? I mean, that's they're cranking right now, and I think they took that Alaska loss a couple of weeks ago to heart. They've played really well since then. I like them, but I also like St. Cloud. I mean, the team shows a lot, and especially at home, they've played very well this year. Tough one to pick. I'd probably go with Denver here, get a little bit better price at minus 105. Over under, how can I not go over here? I mean, these teams have been scoring goals. I know that they both have good back ends, and that's kind of what's concerning on that one. Denver just smacked around Miami. Miami has been smacked around at times this year. I don't think we can sit there and say that St. Cloud has been smacked around a lot. So it might be a little bit more difficult to get goals in this one than it was last week for Denver, but I still think that you could see, easily a 5-2 game here. I mean, that's still kind of too close to 6 for my liking, but if you're going to put a gun to my head and tell me I got to pick one of them, I'm going over here.
Yeah, and I think I went the other way for it to take St. Cloud was largely based on the fact that it's at St. Cloud, and like you said, though, Denver's been throwing goals at teams, but, and there's a big but here, it was Alaska in the second game after they lost, and then 2 games against Miami, who, like you said, has been susceptible to giving up the large number. So I am taking St. Cloud at least for the first game. I think we're likely to see a split in the series. I would also just kind of venture on the over-under that St. Cloud is, I like the over too, by the way, that St. Cloud can score 3 or 4 goals. Denver, even with a regression, can score 3 or 4 goals, and that gets us over 6. So unless you think this is going to be 4-2, 3-3, which I don't, I think this could be a 5-4 type situation. That over might be gone by under the understanding that both teams do have very good back ends, very good defenses. So there's a very big asterisk there. I just look at the number of goals scored by St. Cloud over the course of the year and think Denver's the one team that can match that. Like the amount of times that St. Cloud has scored 4 goals in a game. I do think St. Cloud wins, but I think Denver's gonna give them a run for that money, and that's why the over under at 6. I would have put this at 6.5, and I still probably would have taken it. Put it at 7. I might even still take it then too. Between this and the Michigan series, I really like overs this weekend in general.
Yeah, St. Cloud State, though, the one issue since break, I'm doing goal totals here: 3-3, 6-4. So they haven't been scoring a ton. It's not that they're not scoring a ton. They haven't. I mean, the 4 against Colorado College was the high of that, but they've been giving up a lot. So that's the only coaching I will do on that right there, because personally, I still think that it's one of those where I think St. Cloud can do it. I mean, Denver, let's go to the other side of that. Since Christmas break, Denver is 4-9-7-7. But a lot of that is their slot machine of going 7-7-7 in 3 straight games in terms of goals scored. So just some data.
Something intangible in this. This is a big weekend for St. Cloud State because they left 3 points on the table against Colorado College last weekend. They're trailing Denver by 6 points in the standings, but they're not very far ahead of both Omaha with 21 and Colorado College with 20, even Western Michigan with 19. They could drop out of home ice if they're not careful this weekend. So there's a special emphasis there for the Huskies to get points out of this weekend. Let's go to the last one. Western Michigan is minus 205 at Colorado College, a plus 165. It was a split, as I mentioned, at St. Cloud last weekend for Colorado College. Meanwhile, the Tigers are hosting the top scoring team with the top scoring line in the country. So the over-under is a 6.5.
I like Colorado College in a lot of situations, and they do seem to play well on Fridays. So that gets my, antennae up a little bit. I'm going back to their last 4 Fridays they have won. Now they've backed that up with the loss 3 of those 4 Fridays. The only sweep they have is Nebraska Omaha. On Friday nights in general, they are better than on Saturday nights. So being on this game is on Friday. I believe they have 3 Friday losses this year. That's pretty good. I feel like this is going to be a split. So if I'm going to pick the split, then I'm going to give it Colorado College at home on Friday night. 6.5. I don't know if there's a high enough goal total, but I do also couch that in saying if I believe Colorado College is going to win, I think they're going to have to play well defensively. So maybe we don't get to 7 goals. This could be a 3-2, 3-1 game if CC plays the game they want to.
Last week, I think it was last week. I said that I really believed Western Michigan was back. That was after they had those issues against Omaha and North Dakota, and then they went out, swept North Dakota, and scored 11 goals in the process. The only reason why I'm taking Colorado College is because, one, I love Colorado College. Like we've talked about them as a program on this podcast, how much we like what they're doing, how much we like the infrastructure out there, everything about Colorado College. I personally really like at a personal level. So it's more of an emotion bet, which you never want to make anyway. But the plus 165 at home for me is enough to say, like I did with Air Force, like I did with Wisconsin. It's one of those really what feels like a large home dog in the altitude in Colorado is enough for me to say I'm willing to put money down, my monopoly money. I'm willing to put it down on Colorado College in this and probably take the under in that situation. But I do that with the caveat that I just really hate the odds on Western Michigan. And if this is one I would probably stay away from largely because I really don't like the bet, but I can't in my right mind bet Western Michigan minus 205 going into Colorado to win that game outright. Like I can't do it in my right mind. I also can't in my right mind say Colorado College. So gun to my head, I'm taking the home underdog at home in Colorado Springs with the benefit of, 6,000 feet of altitude.
A couple of things to back you up on that. Colorado College is 7-4-1 at home this season, much worse on the road. Caden Mberico, 926 save percentage. And in his games, CC has only allowed him to see 27 shots and overall just about 28 shots. So defensively, they've been pretty solid too. So, you've made a pretty good argument for the home team in this one. Certainly, as Jimmy would say, some value in this one.
I think that's where it comes down to. You have to look at the value. And again, I'm going back to the Friday nights. CC just seems to be a better team. At home, I'm sure that it has something to do with the fact that there's an adjustment factor to the altitude for the visitors.
Well, we're going to wrap things there for this week's edition. USCHO Edge is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 6th and 8th at Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida. Secure your seats at ncaa.com/mfrozen4. I'm Ed Trefzger. For Jim Connelly and Dan Rubin, we thank you for listening. You can find our podcast at uscho.com/podcast or subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And this has been USCHO Edge.